That's the side benefit.
So I'm gonna share some information, and you guys have the privilege in your stewardship to figure out how to apply it. And I believe in the principle that better information leads to better inspiration. So one of the things that you can help me with is to kind of share some reasons for why this topic appeals to you. What personally, what are some questions going on in your minds with regard to your youth or your stewardship that brought you to tonight? And actually, that doesn't necessarily have to apply to the topic. If there are some questions that are top of mind as a parent, I'm curious what those are, and then I can kind of try to tailor what I want to present. I've got 40 pages of stuff we could cover, but I don't think you want to hear that one. Right? So tell me, just share why you want to come tonight. What questions are top of mind? What are you hoping to hear or get from tonight? You want to start?
Yeah, I just came because I really want to try and make our activities of daily living as a family flow more smoothly with my 12-year-old Hannah being intrinsically motivated, or or maybe not, or maybe I just will know maybe now after this extrinsically how to better motivate her to just do the basic things that families need to do.
Okay, that's great. And I really like that you're already making the distinction. There's extrinsic motivation, which is actually really easy for us to kind of fall into, right? It's the carrot or the stick. I'll either bribe you or I'll punish you. Either way, we're going to make this happen, right? So how do we actually shift that to something that we can help them build intrinsic motivation, where they're wanting to do something and it's coming from them? If that we can get to that point, it's much more sustainable and flows a lot better, right? There's some principles there. If they want to do good things that are helpful for them, and life goes a lot more smoothly. So I totally can relate to where you are. Thanks for sharing that. In the back, how about you two? Will you remind me your names?
Jeremiah and Daniel.
And
Church.
Who's
Brecken Church. He's
Brecken?
7th grade.
7th grade? Okay.
I would say, right now, I feel like our kids, they kind of do the things they need to do. I don't know if we have to motivate them too much. Brecken, he's my oldest, and he really kind of just is motivated. Whether he is or he isn't, he does it willingly.
Okay.
And that's good, but I do worry sometimes, or I've heard from other parents, or as they become junior high and high school students, of them like losing that motivation, or when you get to the kids that are just like stuck and they don't have that drive, like what do you do then when they're really unmotivated or they have a lack of drive to do anything? I think I worry prematurely about that, but I would like to, you know, have more information to help.
Yeah, and I think there really is a developmental stage where they start to ask more why questions.
Yeah.
They really start to be, less willing to just go along and people please, I guess might be a way to say that. They really want to know why they should be doing things. So I think it's wise to kind of anticipate that.
Yeah.
Start looking for some signs. That's great. Okay.
I'm always curious, like, when I offer something, it is the best. It's the most motivating thing ever. So when they're not motivated, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what? So I think I need to learn, like, how to say things so that I can see, obviously it's the best thing, but I need to see it from their eyes so that I can say it right.
And so this is you want to connect with your class.
Yeah, even just how I say things, even with my own kids or my own class.
Okay.
A lot will just jump in, Hannah, Brecken, I'm always like, yes.
Very motivated at school.
No but yeah, sometimes I wonder how if I present something in a way that might be like, that was not right.
So maybe a way with some language that just change your approach that might speak to them a little bit better. Interesting. Brandon, I could be here tonight.
date with Danielle. I was excited when I saw the topic. We've been talking a lot in seminary if we're able to give these high school students more liberty with using digital scripture. How can we motivate them to choose to stay with scripture rather than disengage and go to games and reels and messaging?
Shock therapy.
Yes.
I was gonna say, how do you? I was gonna say that, probably shock therapy sounds about our only option. What do you do?
Or food therapy, I've noticed that
Yeah.
seminary teachers here will bring food.
It is
will help.
a consistent request for students.
You guys need a chef, each seminary.
We really
teacher
do.
needs a chef, you do.
It would change the game.
It
You
will.
have an administrative role in the seminary.
Yes.
You're also in the classroom.
Yes.
And how many students do you teach?
55,
Is that across two classes?
classes.
Okay.
What age?
9 through 12.
9 through 12, okay, high school.
How about you two? How come you're here tonight? What are you looking for?
For you, James, always.
For me, my kids are able-bodied, they're strong, they're healthy, and once that engine gets going, they're good, they're motivated, right? But it's getting that drive going, so how do I help keep them engaged, keep them motivated, but also helping them understand we're doing all these things for the long-term goal or the long-term payoff. So stay motivated now because your payday is coming. Help them understand that it's not just for the moment, but it's for your future.
So there is an element, once they kind of get going, that they're happy to stay. So there's a little bit of inertia maybe to get them in.
Yeah.
Carrot or stick?
Is that the motivational tool?
Who do you think uses what?
Don't
But-
let this
but
shell
truthfully-
fool you. Wild.
But truthfully, sometimes it's taken that and it's been fun, like some of our biggest paydays as parents are when they, more specifically about Todd, but when they say, thank you so much for making me do that hard thing that I fought you tooth and nail and cried about.
Yeah.
Because now I can do it and I'm good at it, but if I didn't have that stick moment, I would have never maybe even tried it. So I think there's a lot of personality issues in that too, because I'm a lot that way, or I have to do it on my own timetable, right? I'm happy to try and participate, but no one's gonna make me do it. I wanna do it when it's my idea type thing. So I don't know, so it's just been a balance. So I do think their personality plays such a huge role in it. Like hearing Mrs. Porter talk about it too, I'm like, every student loves her class, like whether or not they're outwardly boisterous about it. Like Cooper comes home and adores her class, so whatever you're saying is plenty motivational for him, and even though he's off the walls all the time, like he's hearing it, you know what I mean, he's feeling it. So I think that's really important too. How do we make them feel, and then what can we make them do with
And I think you touched on something important, right? Developmentally, a 2-year-old isn't gonna reason with you and say, oh, there's really a higher purpose in doing this, right? When they're playing in the middle of the road, there's no choice that really comes into play, right?
Right.
You're coming with me, and that's a transition from 2-year-old to 18-year-old, where now they're a lot more capable of acting on their own, making their own choices, have more freedom and accept that responsibility. So where they are in that transition over those period, that period of puberty is really important to understand, because it may be different for Cooper than it is for Howie.
every kid will be, we just learned. Not one of our kids are, it's good.
Okay, how about you two?
Well,
You have
this-
2 seniors, so.
I was gonna say, this is a tricky, we're at a tricky spot
on the
because
home
we're
stretch, right?
coming to this weird phase where how do you make this educational pursuit seem as enticing, as important as, no, I'm gonna go out there and bring in the big bucks. I'm gonna make money, and if I have an opportunity to make money, I'm choosing that every second over, doing all this book work. So that's where we're at.
Is that with both of them, or
No,
the boy?
the boy one. But it sounds logical for a boy. That's a natural thing that happens as a man grows up, is to learn how to provide. And so it's hard to look and say, no, what you think is important isn't important because, you know, reading all these books is important instead of getting out there. And so we're at a tricky place, actually. I don't know.
Jackie, I'm interested, do your older ones play any part, like, or any role to your younger ones in helping them? Because I know all your older boys, like, got an education, right? And so do they play a role? Because generationally, the times are changing too, so it is hard to keep education so enticing when trades are being, you know, and trades are also a form of education, but.
Yeah.
Anyway, what role do
We
they
have
play?
half and half with the olders, so some of them, you know, went the higher education route, and they're trying to tell the twins, like,
You gotta do that.
get on this, do this. The other ones are like, what are you talking about? You have all the skills to go out and create anything you want. You don't need that. So I don't know.
You guys
They're
do
getting
have
a
the
lot
best
of
of
they're
all
getting a lot
worlds.
of mixed messages. Who knows?
Yeah, and all the older ones are out trying to make a living and making money, so the younger ones are like, I wanna be there too, like, why am I still
Naturally.
doing this?
Yeah.
So it's
That's
tricky.
tricky. What about your kids, James? What are they? I mean, Brad's at BYU.
Yeah, so the youngest is at BYU his freshman year, and he's in a field that he's gonna probably, or wants to get into, he's gonna need some degree, and he's looking at PA in sports medicine or something like that, so he'll need some schooling if that's what he wants to pursue. Kind of left it open, so kind of trusted the process a little bit. And my second youngest, Sarah, is graduating this summer. So she's trying to decide if she wants to go to graduate school or be done. So that's her decision right now. And my oldest graduated a year or so ago. So she's also gone back to get some additional certifications. They've all kind of tied themselves to an advanced degree after high school. So, despite our best efforts.
No, despite great motivation.
Will you remind me your younger daughter's name?
Ava?
Ava, that's right. So I'm just asking, you know, what about this topic is interesting, if this is what you brought here tonight, or if you're just coming just to come.
I'm
What's-
always here for it all. I
Okay.
love your classes. But, maybe a little bit more insight on, if they're maybe, you know, like right before the semester ends, they're running a little bit tired and they're having a hard time finding that motivation to finish strong. So anything on that,
Okay,
and, maybe how to connect with them when they're like maybe leaning more towards the negative mindset, to like get them out of there and remind them, so it doesn't, you know, sound salesy, like I don't wanna sell it to you, I want it to be like genuine, so, cause they have big personalities, you know, so I don't wanna take away their agency, and I don't wanna, you know, sell it to them too good that it just appears like that I'm trying to sell it to them, but
like it's a manipulation. It's,
yeah.
not perfect.
So I mean, you've been in the parenthood business a little longer than me, so you can just enlighten me with whatever, I'm here for it all.
I don't know if it comes with any higher qualifications, so good luck with that. But I do wanna share some ideas. I've been thinking a lot about what causes a generation gap. We hear that term, that the rising generation seems to not connect very well with the previous one. But there is a connection to the one before that. So grandparents and grandchildren seem to get along sometimes better than parents and children. Right? And I made the joke before, the reason is because the grandparents and the children share a common enemy. So just kidding, right?
Oh,
That's not necessarily, but there is something about the generations and how that aligns with what's going on in the world that influences that generation gap. So I wanna kind of talk about that a little bit, because that could give us some different language or a different approach to understand, you know, what it's like for our children growing up in today's world that's so different from what the world was like when we were growing up, that can sort of set some expectations or a mindset that we might have, that we might bring to that relationship that's just not really very helpful. They interpret that in a much different way than we might. So I'm gonna write some archetypes or some patterns, and I just wanna see which of these, if any of them, you kind of relate to more than the other ones. So if we start with there are generations that their job is to warn. So they're very, they're vocal, they're idealistic, they have big values, big plans, culture warriors, they're visionary.
James, did you say our, like O-U-R in the conflict? Is that what you said, our generation?
When-
Like our generation
Oh,
falls
no,
into
so this is,
Oh, okay.
this is one archetype.
Oh, okay,
It's a pattern that a generation tends to follow over and over and over again.
So not
When
necessarily
this
ours.
generation comes around, okay?
Okay.
Where they just feel the need to sort of warn society about something. So that's one set of characteristics to think about. Another one is this generation's job is to defend or protect or fight, okay? And they are much more realistic. They are more independent. They don't really want to do things as a group, they just want to go get the job done and get done. And I do it better than anybody else. And it'll take a lot less time if I just do it. So efficiency. That's another pattern, another archetype, okay? And then this one is build or rebuild. Really love structure, creating something and putting it in place and then just watching it happen, watching it work. They tend to want to collaborate more. And they really enjoy systems. If you could just give me a list of things to do, I'll just go do that. This one has a strong sense of moral authority. This one is more about operational power. Like, let's not just talk about things that sound great. What works, right? When the rubber hits the road, I just want something that works and needs to get done. And then this one is more about collective action. So let's gather big projects, big groups of people, and come together in big projects. Okay. Do any of these resonate more with you than the other ones? And how strongly? I'm curious. Okay, so Danielle, you're shaking your head.
We're like
This
giving
one?
to our kids in each of these things.
Oh.
That's total.
What do you think? You personally?
I think
Defend?
yeah.
Brandon, what do you think?
About Danielle, defend.
And how about you?
More toward defend.
Is there a mix?
Yeah, I'd be a mix of defend and rebuild.
Okay, so structure, systems, collaboration
Mhm.
is still pretty strong for you,
Mhm.
but also some measure of independence and.
Especially the being
Efficiency.
realistic. Like, is this a realistic thing, practical?
Okay.
Reason we're doing this.
Do you feel like that, you bring that to the classroom? The sense
Yeah.
of these,
I do.
combination of these?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. How about you?
Me?
Or from Marissa. It's okay.
Marissa.
It's very similar, so I think I would, number one would be defend. And then when I'm relaxed and have lots of time, you know, I live in the world of rebuild. But when the rubber hits the road, I will go inward and,
Okay.
you know, mama bear. And yes.
Interesting, okay. All right, back row,
I'm all about defend.
defend. Okay, interesting pattern for me here, right? How about you two?
I think each place has a different role. Like, you know, Sundays, church and family home and evening, I feel like maybe I'm more on the Warren side.
Okay, cool.
You know, just at home on a regular day, talking about sports or school, probably more on the defend side.
Okay,
And then, but I think I would do a lot of mixture of defend and rebuild as well, because collaboration is huge, and it's one of the higher, you know, 7 steps of highly successful people is the collaboration and interdependence, and that's kind of a big part of unity.
so interesting, different, I guess different places or different hats that you put on, church, home, work.
For
Is
sure.
Is that true? Okay. So
I-
where do you land, you think?
I'm probably in between defend and rebuild,
Okay.
I think.
All right.
Sometimes visionary. Oh, I could see some of that, right?
Visionary, yeah. That makes sense.
Not very vocal.
Evertson's, how about you two?
I feel like a man without a country.
So none of these really?
I don't know, and if I had to, I'd say probably some of these would defend and rebuild also.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And some warn every now and then.
Okay, Kara, how about you?
I guess I kind of feel the same. I relate to like a couple things on each one, but nothing like stands out.
Okay, all right. Jackie?
I don't know, I resonate with
A
the,
little bit of each also.
yeah, I think I do with all of them.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Same?
Same.
Not gonna commit?
No, I like what you said.
Yeah.
There's different hats. It's-
Right.
Yeah, different hats depending on where you are, which totally makes sense.
It was interesting, it was easy to find my parents in there,
Okay, where are your parents?
like totally Warren, and his parents too. We're like, oh, there's our parents, right over there. Interesting.
Is that similar with anybody else? Parents?
Yes.
A lot stronger here? Maybe bridging these two more
Uh-huh.
than these two? Yeah. Would you say that's right?
Looked like it.
Are you gonna answer for yourself?
He knows too
You'll-
much.
You'll find out.
He knows too much.
How many, so raise your hands, how many were most strongly here? What'd you say? If you had to choose one of the 3, which one would you choose? It's this one. Okay, and then which one would be this one? Okay. And then any here that's most strong? None. All right. So of you that picked defend, did you happen to be born between in this time period? Anybody outside that time period? Is anybody closer to 84? Anybody close-ish to 84 that felt more like here?
I'm 83,
Okay,
and, yeah,
You've got more rebuild.
if I had to pick one.
so when you are kind of on this border, it does make sense that it's
That's
not a clear
weird.
delineation, right?
Crazy.
So nobody in here is older than me, I guess, right?
There's our James up there.
Pre-1964?
That's what that is anything before 64, huh?
Oh.
Come
I was
on.
with you, I'm like.
Come on.
One.
Come on, hand it to us.
180. Oh, 40.
So that's crazy.
That's funny because looking at that list, I put myself in the defend before you put the dates up, and I'm in those dates, yeah,
You're in these dates?
yeah, and I resonated with that one.
How did I call that?
Maybe I haven't grown up yet, cause I'm still.
That's how I felt too.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so these are generation archetypes. There's a model of history that I've talked about a little bit before called the fourth turning that basically says every 80 to 100 years, we repeat a cycle. And that cycle goes through 4 phases. I usually draw it like this. So if let's start the pattern with a crisis. So this is something that is a really big challenge that society has to come together. And it is like culturally, it shifts culture, it shifts society, it changes a lot about how we are organized. So events like the American Revolution, the Civil War, World War II. Okay, if you look at the dates, they're all 80 to 100 years apart because they land at the same time in this cycle. And after that, we make it through, then we enter a phase that's called the high. So, or this is a time of building, rebuilding. So this could be after World War II, it's the happy days, 1950s, 1940s, 1950s. That time when everybody's come back from the war, we're celebrating, we have the biggest batch of babies born during that time, right? Lots going on. So in a crisis, it's very pessimistic, it's a challenge. We don't get along, we fight with each other, and then we have to kind of come together to fight a common enemy, generally, is what happens. After we get through that, then, well, life has changed. We're optimistic, we're coming together, we're working together. The future is very bright, and we're living in a really great time to be alive. Things are really building. And these phases are about 20 to 25 years apart, so it's about a generation. Then we enter an awakening. So we answer a question, a big societal question, and we found a new way of living. So the first generation that builds this has children, and the rising generation says, why are we doing it that way? I'm not sure that makes any sense anymore. So we start to question the basis of this founding or this high. And that's called an awakening. We start to ask new questions about it. And that leads to more and more fracturing. And we enter a period called an unraveling. We divide into camps, right? Red and blue in politics, atheist, religious, right? There's all kinds of camps. And so we're fighting a lot, and then we enter into the next crisis and the pattern repeats. Okay, so depending on when you're born in this cycle, you experience a different upbringing. Life is just a little bit different. For example, if I am born during this crisis period, this 20-25 years, life's pretty dark and complex and kind of scary, right? This world is not a safe place. So if I'm born with that, and then I enter into a high, all of a sudden my life is just completely almost opposite when I'm entering into adulthood. It's a very different experience from someone who was born during an awakening where people are still pretty optimistic, working together, but we're starting to question things, so life's getting a little bit frilly, right? And then we go into an unraveling, and life just seems to get darker and darker and darker for me as I get older. So where you're born, and the time when you're born, the time when you're raised, and the time you enter midlife, the time that you enter elderhood, as a generation, that affects you. And so we can kind of look at the generations, and they have very common characteristics depending on when they're born. Now this is a pattern, it's archetype, right? So people who are kind of born in the borders, really they're going to be one way or the other. It's not like fixed in stone. So we may mostly relate to one of these, depending on where we're born. It's not always going to be a perfect fit, but I think it's instructive to understand, the archetype, the pattern. when you have parents that are idealistic and vultures, vocal visionaries,
That's fair.
moral authority, right? This generation has a role to be our moral compass. They are entering, so they are midlife here and elderhood here in the crisis. So in this pattern, we would be in the crisis period. So the elders, the older ones in our society, are still in political office, quite a bit of them, right? They're still kind of worn, in quotes. The moral compass isn't always healthy with the generation, right? So there's more details in this we could go into, but in general, this is the moral compass. This generation, this is how I draw it, and I had a terrible drawing. So it's a shield with eyeballs, okay? Because their parents are so idealistic, they kind of react against that and say, yeah, enough of the big stories of being loud. Let's figure out what's real. Let's do something that actually works. Let's be more pragmatic. Their parents are out being culture warriors, right? So in the last generation, moms and dads went into the factories. They're not at home very much. And so the children are kind of forced to be more independent. And it is about efficiency and being realistic, and let's just get to work and do something that we need to do the work. Then we have the next generation that sort of reacts against this, where now we need to get back to collaborating. We're too independent. We need teams. We need some structure. We need systems. That kind of leads into, from efficiency into systems. But sometimes we create structures and systems that are actually opposite of efficiency, right? The bureaucracy gains a life of its own, and so we start to have troubles with our institutions and our structures. So you can kind of see as you go along this pattern, depending on when you're born. So the prophets are born during the high. They enter adulthood and awakening, midlife, and elderhood. So most of us relate to this time period. We're born during an awakening, and the first part of our life is pretty good, but then the story is changing on us, right? It feels harder to be successful in work, in business, different things we're doing, and it just feels like, how do we get out of this rut? And it's getting darker and darker and darker. We have, so depending on where you're born in this time period, you will have children that match this, or the one that I haven't written yet. There's a fourth generation, but most of the kids that are at this school are in the generation after this. Because they're born during the crisis period, and they come of age in the high.
James, do these patterns repeat? The warn, defend, rebuild, and then the fourth one, and then it starts all over?
Yeah, so if you take the American Revolution, right, we broke away from Great Britain, and then we had to rebuild our society. So we created a constitution, we had our first president, we had our first Congress, we had our first laws, everything's growing. And then we start to question, why are we doing that? We start to fight a little bit, expanding west. We still haven't resolved the slavery issue that leads to the Civil War. After the Civil War, now we gotta reconstruct our society, figure out how to heal. We're also building the West, and we've expanded out into Utah and California. There's a lot of building going on, and then we get through that cycle to World War II. You know, World War I, Great Depression, World War II. So we can go back, our histories are pretty well documented, so we can go back. In class this year, we're going back to the Wars of the Roses, 1400s, seeing this pattern over and over and over again. As the history gets less and less available, the 80 to 100 years isn't as discernible, but you still see the same pattern cycling over and over again. So, I'm gonna go to the Book of Mormon, okay? So the archetypes in the Book of Mormon, Abinadi, Lehi, what else do I have? Samuel Lamanite. And then you have the defenders, Captain Moroni. You'll know more of these than I will.
Oh,
Brandon.
great.
Tiancum. Lehi the commander, not Lehi the prophet, right? The builders are the stripling warriors, Helaman. Nephi as a builder, once they leave the old world and come here, he's building a new society. And then, I haven't got to the fourth generation yet, but we're getting there. I just want to see this pattern, right? So, there's things going on in our outer world, and it's affecting how we see the world, what our perspective is, and our approach. Okay, so if we bring this to interact with a generation that's very different from us, that's where the generation gap can happen. So if we can learn the language of the generation we're trying to reach, to know what's important to them, that might be able to help us. Is that a fair assumption? Okay, questions, comments, complaints?
I just had a question, if you are, or person's born in one of those categories, can you move into other categories? You know, like by the time I'm 90, am I gonna be in the Warren category, or do I?
So there's nothing fixed in stone about this. This is a model.
Uh-huh.
And there are people born during this time period that actually relate quite well to this one or this one.
So it's kind of
So
always moving in.
It's a little bit fluid, but if we
As
look
a
at a
whole.
pattern, the generation matches this, and they take this through the cycle. Right, so the prophets, they're more and more vocal in the crisis. Right, they're trying to tell us everything we're doing wrong, trying to convince us of things we should be doing differently, and they're vocal. In the crisis, the defenders are the generals fighting the battles and fighting the war. The heroes are the infantry, right? So they'll have that role during the crisis. And there's another generation that's born, that we're gonna talk about now, that actually is what most of the kids at Ascend are. So this is, none of this really describes them yet as a generation.
The quote, hard men, or hard times create strong men create soft times, right?
Yeah.
It just fits in so beautifully.
Yeah. So the archetype that I'll use, I'm gonna do lowercase, because it's not like a prophet, but it's an archetype. The prophet's warned. They're idealistic, they're cultural warriors, that they're trying to keep us, remind us what is the right thing to be doing, okay? This is a nomad, so if you're like me, I'm actually a nomad. So 1970, I fit really well with this. When we came home from school, usually we're the latchkey generation, right? Mom and dad were working probably. And so we had to figure things out on our own, take care of ourselves. I could go out once I got home to my friend's house and be there till 8, 9, 10 before mom said, hey, where are you? Right? Just, it was a different world. I grew up in this time period where it still felt safe to be out and not be really accounted for. As soon as we get here, I'm watching my children, I'm tracking them on their phones. I know exactly where they are all the time, right? Because the world's a very different place. And I already have this idea that I need to defend and protect because of the environment that I grew up in. And then this one, we call it hero generation. All right, you guys ready to get to the next generation?
Yes.
Why we're here?
Yeah, but what's your little visual for heroes?
Oh, heroes.
I just have to
We love your
know.
artwork.
There's
We
a
love
cape,
your
there's a
artwork.
cape.
There's a cave. That's the word.
Okay,
I'm a listed.
these are my diagram. So a builder, well, this is a chain that's broken and they are trying to repair the wing. So
Nice.
they rebuild or they build. They come of age, let's see, they're born during the unraveling, adulthood here, and then they're midlife here. So they're at their really prime time to help rebuild society, and that's where their energy is. Let's create corporations, businesses, programs, that's really their strength. All right, let's talk about the next generation. The word for them is artists. I'm gonna change this a little bit to, I think 2006 is more than it's used to. So this is 2006 to, however long it takes to get to the end of our crisis period. Okay, so artists. Artists are born during a crisis, so society has really fallen apart in many different ways. So their role when they're entering adulthood is to heal what's happened. So they heal, and whatever new story we come up with that's going to last for these next few generations, they have to tell that story to keep reminding us of why we created this, why the principles and the values that we dealt with, through the art, through writing, through poetry, through video now, plays, whatever it is that they do, they need to tell the story to keep us on that page as long as we can. So, what's important to them? Be the one that reminds us. Remember, their job is to create whatever they can to help us establish that culture. So, Book of Mormon, you think of the writers, so Mormon, Moroni, Nephi as a record keeper. That's really their job. That would be their generation, their archetype. They value flexibility, connection in terms of belonging. Where do I belong? How do I fit? They value meaning. Why am I doing this? There needs to be a deeper reason for me to want to do this. It's not just because you told me to do it, right? It's not just because there are rules in the system and there's a checklist that I just need to go do those things. That doesn't appeal to them. They value authenticity. They value emotional safety. So it kind of makes a lot of sense why there's this push to have to create safe spaces in schools, right? The anxiety is really high right now in this particular generation. What were they, what conditions were they born in? They're looking for something that's stable, that's safe, that has meaning, that they feel like they belong somewhere. The world is at each other's throats, right? We've separated in camps, and so sometimes they do feel like this camp or that camp or another camp, depending on how things get divided. So now their role is to figure out, okay, how do we heal from this, and then how do we live for the next 800 years? What does that look like? All right. Now, what do we do about that? Is this resonating a little bit? When you think about your children in your class, do some of these qualities and characteristics sort of line up with where they are? Do you see any of this with them? You might see some blended. Typically, right now, you'll see if these are in the classroom, teachers might be coming from this and parents from this. So there's an interesting interaction with the generations in the school classroom. So how do nomads relate to artists? Because we're, realistically, just sit down and do it. What's the big deal, right? Just, it's on your list, you gotta cross it off.
Exactly.
SIS says you need to do this, just sit down and do it. What's the problem? And I don't need to be babysitting you. You're big enough, you're old enough, you can just do this,
You
right?
have 4 already, jeez.
Why does it take you 2 hours to write that essay? It should take you like 15 minutes and be done, right?
So I guess I'm a nomad, okay?
They're hearing something very different when we're using that language. Okay? I have to write something down because I still have trouble with my language with them.
James, what I think is super interesting and sometimes hard for me to remember is that we literally need every single type and category. Like, I think sometimes thinking of my kids looking at me like, oh, you're so old, you're so dumb, like you don't know, and probably the same way I thought about my parents at that age. But without all of this, the world would not spin. So it is so interesting how, realistically, how heaven works, right? But we literally need what would you do if you took one of those away? It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is each one of these has a healthy role.
Yeah.
And there's also a shadow role, like they can slip into, that makes the turning less healthy. So someone whose job is to remind us of what's good and what's bad can slip into becoming zealous, right? Or like ideological, like there's one thing.
Or judgmental.
Or judgmental. Yeah, there's one thing in their life that's important and I'm just gonna focus on that. Could be environment, could be whatever, right? And so you become narrow and zealous and sort of over energetic sometimes, right? A defender can look at what's happening to the world and they could be tempted to run off into the mountains with their food supply and just say, world, good luck, I'm taking care of myself and my family, we're gonna be okay, right? So escapism is sort of the temptation of this generation. This generation is building, and their temptation is the bureaucracies sort of take a life of their own. Right? So it's about systems, and what's the system in place now? It's sacred. And whether it's still fulfilling its role very well or not, it doesn't matter, we just need to keep feeding that bureaucracy. Okay. The artist generation, their role is to heal and tell the story. They could be tempted to just become fragile and just kind of give up and not really throw their hands up and say, there's too much I can't do. So, if a parent were to say, just get it done, what an artist would hear, the nomad says, if a nomad says, just get it done, an artist is likely to hear, you don't care how I feel. So what a nomad might want to say to an artist in that situation is, what part of this feels confusing or meaningless? Let's talk about it. Another scenario, a nomad teacher said, these are the steps, it's pretty clear. 1, 2, 3, just walk through the steps. An artist might hear, where do I fit? Where's my voice, right? You're giving me a system. How do I belong in this cold system, step-by-step algorithm? Where's the meaning for me? how do I belong, help me make sense, right? So, a nomad teacher might say, here's the structure, and here's where you get to express your creativity. So these are the steps. I'm gonna give you an assignment, but here's 3 different options that you could do to fulfill this assignment. You could build something, you could write something, you could create a play, a poem. There's a variety of ways that within this structure you could express what's important. Right? Another example, a teen might say, I don't feel like doing this. Parent hears, a nomad parent hears, you're just being lazy, just do it, right? So maybe a better way to connect with that artist is, what's the connection? What's not connecting with you? How can we figure that connection out so that this seems more to you? Add some meaning, add some authenticity, add a reason for why this particular assignment matters to you. That's what they're looking for, the why, and they really want to be part of something meaningful. They want to be in a place where their generation feels a lot and speaks through their emotions and their feelings, and they're really looking for a safe place, feel like they belong, and they can do something that matters, and the flexibility is really super important to them. They're artists, right? Artists don't want to follow rules. They want to be able to express. So if we allow that kind of expression, it really helps us connect with that generation. And it goes against how we were raised, right? It's just totally, in many ways, alien to the experience that we had. You had a comment or question?
Well, I was just gonna say, what a blessing it is to have so many options for education, because with this particular generation of artists, like, the way they need to be taught and the way that sings to their soul is polar opposite of how I needed to be taught in my education here. So I'm just grateful for opportunities like Ascend or anything, or homeschool, or half online, half in person, or, I mean, I can't even think of a time that was an option for education, but with this generation in particular, that's exactly what they need: flexibility, connection, authenticity. Like, never, to my knowledge, has there ever been as many opportunities as there are now within education itself to be able to sing to the generation, like to the artists.
So, the interesting part about these 3 generations, they tend to be way more assertive than that generation. Right? They don't have any problem stepping in the spotlight, leadership positions in society, taking on a big project, being independent, making it happen, doing the work. These are not spotlight people as a whole, as a generation.
Except for at the college.
I don't know, Jackie
Opportunities,
had the
right?
crowd pretty good to get
But if,
a lot.
but if you wanted to tell them to go start this big corporation and be the CEO, I don't know if that's what you need, right?
But
So,
if it's making a TikTok video,
Hey.
right?
sign them up.
Sign me up.
Yeah, that's true.
When an artist hears no one cares about your feelings, what do they actually care? They'll be like, I tell my kids all the time, it doesn't matter how you feel, like, we just gotta get it done.
Literally. Sometimes we do things we don't wanna do, and we do it anyway.
I'm just wondering what they're hearing, so. I guess I'm looking for a small rebuke right now.
Just putting it out there.
But my ultimate question is, why then are these 3 in charge of educating these guys that looks like they need something completely different than what any of us have to offer or even support them in?
So,
That's totally different.
yeah, so when you find these coming of age and entering midlife and then elderhood, they are the prominent leaders in society. Right? But their generation sort of has a peak, and then their influence wanes pretty quickly. Like when they're adulthood, maybe into midlife, that's their peak. After that, people don't listen to them anymore. Even elderhood in crisis, they're really shouting loud, but like, whatever. Kids have no clue. You just need to go retire somewhere, right? What's somebody else come in and sort of take over. This generation is different. It's quieter, it's subtle, but their influence lasts 100 years. They learn how to tell a story. They learn their role. This is pretty empowering. I've seen this in the classroom. When they understand their generation, not all of them feel like they fit here, but they understand the pattern. All of a sudden, they have a pretty amazing purpose. It means something, right? What is the story?